Hello and welcome back to Universal Recaps. Today I'm going to show you a thrilling action movie from 2010 called Unstoppable. A young conductor named Will Coulson is starting a new job at Brewster Yard in southern Pennsylvania City. But before going to the job he watches his ex-wife and son from a distance. He can't go closer because of a restraining order since an incident 2 weeks ago. He got very angry when he thought his wife was texting a man without telling him. He went to the man, who turned out to be a cop, and threatened him with a gun. But it was a misunderstanding. Darcy was only chatting with her sister. He tries to call her before leaving, but she doesn't answer when she sees it's him calling. When he reaches the station, he meets Frank Barnes, the man he'll be working with. Frank's friends make fun of him for being so young and Will teases them back for being quite old. After agreeing to meet by the trains later, the other men comment that Will got the job because of his family connections in the headquarters. Meanwhile, at Fuller Yard in northern Pennsylvania, Dewey and Gillies are moving the lead locomotive number 777 to clear a track for another train carrying students on a class trip about railway safety. Gillies tells Dewey he forgot to connect the air, which means he had no brakes in train. Dewey says it's okay because he just needs to move the train to another track inside the station yard. He'll fix it later to avoid getting in trouble with their boss. As the locomotive starts moving, Dewey sees a switch isn't aligned properly. He leaves the cab after setting the switch from throttle to idle. He fixes the switch, but at the same time, the throttle goes from idle to full power, making the train speed up and leaving Dewey behind. Now locomotive number 777 is runaway. Frank and Will need to move 25 cars past Stanton as part of their job for the day. While they prepare, Will gets a call from his brother saying his lawyer got a hearing to lift the restraining order. Will doesn't need to be there, he can stay at work. A bit later, as Will moves the locomotive to the right track, Frank calls his daughter to apologize for forgetting her birthday. She cuts the phone on him when he tries to give an excuse again this time. Frank then realizes Will put the locomotive on the track the wrong way. He scolds Will for not paying attention and talks about the company sending young, inexperienced workers like him to replace the old ones. After a few hours of driving together, they bond over family stories. Will shares about the restraining order, and Frank talks about losing his wife to cancer. Back at Fuller Yard, yard manager Connie Hooper arrives at the office. She learns about the situation and starts working on finding a solution. First, they tell the driver-conductor with the school kids to switch to a different track in Portville, and he does, passing the runaway number 777 train on the way. Then, they call welder Ned Oldham and tell him to get in his truck and switch the train off the main track. But when Ned gets there, it's too late. The train is already running at full power and he lost the train. Connie tells Ned, Dewey, and Gillies to follow the train in their cars while she calls the police to send officers to all the mainline crossings coming in the path. Dewey and Gillies get close to the train and Gillies even grabs the railing. But he has to let go when a sign gets in the way and they lose the train. When Frank and Will arrive at the yard, Will gets distracted by a call from his brother asking him about the judge didn't like him not being there and extended the restraining order for another 40 days. Now in a bad mood, Will accidentally joins too many cars, and Frank scolds him for that. While they argue, they get a call about the runaway train. They're asked to clear their train from the tracks at the next siding, which is 10 miles away. The accident is making it to the news, and Connie gets a stress call from Oscar Galvin, president of train operations. She mentions the cargo the runaway is carrying, molten phenol, but doesn't know exactly what it is. Federal Railroad Administration Inspector Scott Werner comes in line as he knows about it. Werner explains molten phenol is highly toxic, flammable, and harmful. He also explains this turns the train into a huge missile. Connie suggests derailing the train in the farms before it reaches populated areas inside the city. Meanwhile, Galvin rejects the idea due to the heavy financial cost. At a crossing, a truck got stuck on the track. The cops fail to move a truck. Owners rescue the scared horses before the train destroys the truck. Frank calls the main office to tell them they can't take the next siding because the train won't fit. Will suggests pulling the brake, but Frank refuses. As a result, they'll encounter the runaway train sooner or later. After a meeting, Galvin shares the plan. Engineer Judd Stewart's locomotives will slow the train, and Ryan Scott will descend via helicopter to control the train. Judd keeps his locomotives in front of the train to slow it, but Ryan hits a windshield and gets knocked out when he tries to get on. They try to guide the runaway with Judd's help, but it's too heavy. The train pushes the locomotives off the track, exploding and killing Judd. Frank and Will get closer to the runaway, so Frank calls his daughter daughters to tell them he loves them. There's a siding under repairs nearby. They'll attempt to get on that track before the runaway reaches them. Frank turns his train just in time, getting off the main track as the runaway passes. But the runaway destroys Frank's last boxcar because they're still carrying too many cars because of Will. Frank's friend at headquarters tells him they're making everyone leave the next town, which means they're finally going to make the train go off the tracks like they should have done before. But Frank isn't so sure it will work. He thinks those things they put on the tracks to make the train stop won't be strong enough because the train is going too fast and is too heavy. He has another idea. He saw that the last car of the train had an open hook from behind, so he thinks they could drive their train backward, connect it to the runaway train, and use their brakes to slow it down before it gets to a dangerous curve. At first, Will thinks the idea is too risky, but he agrees when he understands that his family is in danger. They disconnect their engine from the front part of the train, then start driving it backward and tell Connie in headquarters about their plan. When the boss, Galvin, threatens Frank to fire him, Frank doesn't really care. He was already told he wouldn't have a job anymore, and that was more than 2 months ago. Will supports Frank's plan even when Galvin tries to scare him with losing his job too. Connie pretends to do what Galvin says to stop, but she's actually helping Frank by telling them where the runaway train is. The police try to shoot a red button on the front of the train to make it stop. They miss and the train goes over the track breakers the police had placed. Now, it's up to Frank and Will to keep the town safe. This gets on the news, so Darcy, her son, and Frank's daughters can see what's happening. Ned takes the police with him to catch up to the train. Connie lets Werner talk to Frank. Werner did some math and told them they should use dynamic brakes to slow the train down instead of trying to make it go the other way. Frank is doubtful of the idea, but later he accepts it. Will guides Frank about the situation from his walkie-talkie. When the trains touch each other, the impact makes the grain on the train spray out. Frank tries again, and this time he's able to make the runaway train connect to their train with some help from Will. Will decides to manually lock the pins but accidentally falls down. Will hurts his foot, but he manages to get back on. When he returned to the cabin, Frank gave him a tape for bandage. They're getting close to a dangerous curve that's tricky, so Frank focuses on braking the train, something that Werner told him earlier. They slow things down a bit, but the runaway train is still too fast and strong. It's pulling them along with it. Will has an idea. They should use the handbrakes on each car. Since Will's foot is hurt, he's in charge of the dynamic brakes and throttle. Frank climbs on the roof, goes from car to car, and activates the handbrakes. The locomotive's brakes were out from too much work, and the train speeds up again. To handle the upcoming curve, they decided to use the independent air brake. Frank guides Will over the walkie-talkie, helping him use the brake at the right times. Together, they succeed. The runaway train goes through the curve with little damage to the area. Then, Frank goes back to jump between cars, trying to reach the runaway's main cab. But the last gap is too wide to cross over and he is not able to jump. Just when they're losing hope, Ned arrives in his truck. He drives next to the train after causing 2 police cars to crash. Connie confirms it's safe and Will jumps on the truck's back. Ned drives him to the front of the train. Will jumps onto the runaway's cab and finally stops the train. After getting off the train, paramedics care for Will's foot. He reunites with Darcy and their son. Later, they attend a press conference. Frank meets his daughters again, and Connie congratulates them. Subscribe to Universal Recaps and turn on notifications for regular updates. Give a thumbs up if you like our content.